I'm Corey Dyson, an artist, and welcome to my studio. I wanted to take a few minutes to share a story with you, a little bit about me and how learning how to paint can be translated into other areas and how that can help you. So I wanted to start with, how I came to starting painting and my painting journey. And it started as an intern at University of Florida residency program, their psychiatry program. And I was on the geropsych unit on the 8th floor of Shands Hospital. And I would spend the mornings rounding with the attending and seeing the patients. And then in the afternoons is when I would spend time with the patients and review their charts and then go into group with them and see them in a non-clinical setting. So one afternoon when they were painting, I stood in the doorway longer than I normally did. And the recreational therapist, Maggie, she had noticed that, the keen observer that she is, and so she invited me to sit down. So with some encouragement, I did sit down and painted with them. It was just brown paper, craft paper, really cheap brushes, non-toxic water-based paint, but it was that feeling of the paint leaving the brush onto the paper that really I was hooked with. So I went to the local hobby store and picked up some acrylic paints and brushes and panel canvases and started practicing painting, finding pictures and painting things from photos, and was really enjoying that. And then I had overestimated my painting ability. I've only been painting for a few months. And didn't know the importance of drawing, and offered to paint a horse for my mom. She had bought this horse, really loved it, but she had to keep it at a friend's house who had land and pasture, and that was several hours away from where she lived. So I wanted to give her this painting of the horse that she could look at and bring her joy. So she gave me a photo of the horse, and I began to work on it and was really proud of it and happy to show it to her. And so when I presented it to her, she said, "This looks like a dog's head on a horse's body." So as soon as she said that, I looked at it and said, "Yes, I do see that same thing." And that was the beginning of the external criticism turning into the inner critic. And at that point, I stopped painting, put everything up, and did not paint for years. And then whenever I met Sarah, my lovely wife, she began to push me into painting. And she had seen, I think it was a painting of daisies, really simple thing of daisies, but she saw the beauty in it. She saw the potential, that potential artist, and she was really pushing me into painting. And it took quite a bit of pushing before she finally was able to convince me to go to a sip and paint type of an event. And that's where you have wine or beer, and you have someone who's up at the front walking you through step by step how to paint a very simple painting. And again, it was that feeling of the paint leaving the brush onto the canvas. It was still acrylics, but it felt just like it did when I was an intern at University of Florida in Gainesville. It felt just the same way, and I had that passion just immediately came back. The love for it immediately came back, and it was the love of that physical feeling. So that ignited that passion again for me to try to start painting again. But later on, I discovered Steven Pressfield, and he's written several books, one of them being The War of Art. And I realized that what I was experiencing, that I called my inner critic, was really resistance, and that everyone who is a human experiences resistance in their life in some form or fashion. That if you are trying to do something that is really important to you, whether it is self-improvement or whether it is your passion or whether it is trying to put yourself out there to go and get your first job, applying to a second layer of or second schools like graduate school, whatever that is that's really important, you're going to face resistance. And so he had talked about how that the resistance is just with everyone has to face it, and that we'll never get rid of it completely, that we'll never just overcome it, that we'll always be battling it, and that you just have to learn how to become a really good warrior at battling your, I like to call them dragons, battling your dragons. You have to get really, really good at that. And so when I read his book on the War of Art, it really clicked of, well, that was why I had stopped, and that was what had kept me, and this is why it is so very important. And the more resistance you feel to doing something, the more important it is, and that's where you really need to be going. And so that's where my art journey, I think, really took off. I started with painting with acrylics, and then I just rediscovered Bob Ross on YouTube, got one of his kits, which was of course oil paints, and started painting in oils, following along with Bob Ross. And it didn't take too many paintings before I realized I'm gonna get the hang of this really fast, and I'm gonna get good at this, and then there's gonna be nowhere else for me to go because I'm gonna be able to paint as well as what I would like to. And that really scared me because I was already feeling, already at that point of I was getting bored in my current job and was needing something else to inspire me, to keep me interested and motivated. And some days I would just wish a really complicated patient would just walk into the office so it would give me something different, something interesting that would really get me really able to work. So with feeling bored in my job and anticipation, becoming bored with this hobby, I said, we've got to figure out something else. And so then that's when I began looking on the internet and found out that you can do the simple thing of setting up a still life and painting it. And so I got a box, Amazon box, flat black paint, painted the inside of it black, got an apple, put an apple in it, got a light from the hardware store and put it on there. And I think I spent 2 or 3 weeks painting that one apple. But it was so much fun. So from that point on, I discovered plein air painting, moved into that, and then also discovered Stefan Baumann and started taking coaching lessons from him, both plein air and still life, and just became so frustrated with plein air painting. I was overcomplicating things. I overcomplicate everything. And it's, but I was doing that and was always coming back unhappy every time I went out plein air painting because it was always too complex. I was trying to say too many things in each piece. And then COVID hit, and the employer I was working for, pulled out of the outpatient business and said, we're just going to do inpatient. So I was left without a job. And so I was forced to quit lessons with Stefan, and then COVID, and had to, find a new job. And I reevaluated what had been a lot of things in my life. I think a lot of people did. A lot of people did reevaluate their lives at the beginning of COVID, and like, am I happy in my house? Am I happy in my job? Am I happy in my life? Am I happy in my marriage? And so looking at At that, I realized that I had actually been stagnant in my art growth for months, nearly a year. And so I began to look around for a different teacher. And I had been following Kelly Folsom on Instagram for, I don't know, months and months, and just loved her art. And it reminded me a lot of David Littlefeld's artwork. Come to find out, she studied under him. So it made sense. There was something in both of their artworks that really was just drawing me to them. And so she had a opening of her classes in June of 2020, and things had settled down job-wise. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this change. I'm going to jump on board. And I'm so glad that I did. I started to work with her and learned so many new things and really learned to simplify. And that has been such a key thing, to learn how to simplify. I'm now taking that into the rest of my life and looking at things and going, am I overcomplicating this? And simplifying so many other things in my life from what I've learned here in art, which is just so amazing. I made notes for myself and can't read my own notes. I still don't know what that says. Oh, now I do. So I began, working and learning some new things with Kelly. And then one of the things that I did was I decided to, with her lessons, was to take each lesson and to practice on something. Be it color mixing or brush strokes or edges or drawing, but I would focus on one thing in those lessons. And in that, I noticed that I was getting better faster, because I was really saying, let's focus on just one basic skill. And I noticed that I was getting better. And on her lessons, I was like, oh, this is just a practice painting. And so a lot of times my practice paintings were looking a lot better than my studio paintings, the paintings I was working on an independent basis, and was, hoping to be selling. But these practice paintings that I was perfectly willing to go throw away, were at many times looking better. So then I had this aha moment. Why don't I think of every painting as a throwaway painting? Think of every painting as I am perfectly willing to go and throw this away. And when I changed my attitude and I changed how I was looking at each painting, and I took all that pressure off of myself of every painting is really a practice throwaway painting, my art also just jumped in brilliant, not in brilliance, but in it being alive. It jumped in more vibrancy. It jumped in more liveliness, and just started immediately looking so much better. And then with beginning to focus on that, I noticed that the resistance was creeping up of, well, you don't have to paint every single night. You're busy. You're working a full-time job. You really don't have to be doing this every single night. And so I realized that I really did have to focus on fighting the resistance and making sure that I was getting into the studio each and every single day. And so when I made that focus of I'm going to get into the studio, I'm going to battle this, that's when I also saw that the consistency of painting and then painting smaller paintings and doing that consistently also improved my art. So over the last almost 2 years, I've been with Kelly Folsom almost 2 years in her classes, and my art just continues to steadily grow and grow and grow. And so how can you use this information? How can this relate back to you? Is that I didn't ever give up. Well, I did when my mom gave me that the painting looked like horse with a dog's head. But I'm wondering, where would I be right now if I had still been painting that whole time? How much not only better would I be, but how much better would I have felt through the whole thing of having this outlet of escape and this outlet for stress relief. How much better would things be at this point? But once I really got back into it, said, look, life may happen, but I'm going to get back in the saddle, and I'm going to get back at the easel, and I'm going to continue to paint. And once I started doing that, that's when I noticed that things really started to improve. The other thing was that I was focusing on one skill at a time, and I still do that. In fact, I'm going to go back and start focusing on just edges. I've realized that's one of my weakest areas right now is how do I use edges in the painting? How can I use them more effectively to create a better painting? So I'm going to be in the lessons really focusing on practicing with creating all the different types of edges, soft edges, hard edges. So it is this intentional practice. And then it's also, taking a step back and not taking yourself or your work so seriously, looking at everything as a practice painting or as a throwaway painting. And then, when you take a moment to step back and reflect and honestly say, am I doing as well as what I would like to be doing? Am I making as much progress as what I think I should? And if the answer is no, being willing to take steps to go change that. And if that means, changing jobs, or if that means changing teachers, or whatever that means, it means changing it up, having that courage to change things. And then just being persistent, keep getting back at the easel, being persistent, and I'm going to, master composition. I'm going to master color mixing and so forth, and doing it even when you have a bad painting, even when you have a painting and it is just a complete failure. The next day, get right back at it and keep on doing it. So these are the things that you can take from my art journey and apply it to whatever journey you want to be going on. And that could be art. It could also be you want to run a marathon. You want to become a marathon runner. Those same things are, these same steps and skills are going to help you do that as well. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope you have gained something from it, and let me know if this has been inspiring, and let me know if you found this helpful. Thank you.